It's Thursday, the 6th of November. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the BLANCOLIRIO channel, and we have some new information and some new video data to share with you on the crash of UPS Flight 2976. Earlier today in a press conference, Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg updated the total number of fatalities is now 12, and there are still 9 people missing. On board the aircraft, there was a total crew of 3 pilots on board: the captain, the first officer, and the RO, or relief officer. Because this flight was going from Louisville to Honolulu, it was a little over 8 hours. Anytime over 8 hours, you got to have a third pilot so the others can take a break. The reserve officer is normally a first officer rated pilot, but sometimes can be filled by a captain. The names of the crew members have not been released. In yesterday's update, we had a discussion as to the configuration of the aircraft when it crashed, specifically the condition of the slats on the left wing. Now we have the photographic evidence to show that, in fact, the slats on the left wing were in the correct position. They were in the extended position. They did not retract. From this dash cam video, we can also see that the number 1 engine is obviously missing, and the entire pylon structure that attaches the engine to the wing is missing, and the wing fire is continuing, and the landing gear is down. In this dash cam video, we can see that the crew is maintaining wings level and attempting to maintain an airspeed to climb away from the ground, but there's simply not enough energy to do that. The aircraft is barely clearing the fence at the end of the runway and will soon begin to clip these wires and then structures ahead. In this photo, we can see the end of runway 17 right, where the aircraft departed from. Here's Crittenton Drive, where that dash cam video was shot of the aircraft just clearing the trees, and then it began hitting the wires here, and it appears that the left wing grazed the top of this building right here. In this new photo just released today or yesterday, we can see the aircraft striking the left wing, one of the tanks, one of the vertical tanks here at the Kentucky Petroleum Recycling Facility. And on this still from the dash cam video shot in the parking lot, we can see the aircraft completely rolled up on its left side with the number 3 engine still intact and the leading edge devices extended in the correct configuration at that time. So from this, we can conclude that it was the crew did their level best to keep the wings level. It's not until the left wing began hitting wires, a rooftop, and then the oil tank at the Kentucky oil recycling plant that the aircraft began to roll to the left. We now have a better understanding of what some of these engine parts are that we're looking at on the right side of the runway. These are the engine parts to the number 1, or the engine on the left side of the aircraft, which ended up on the right side of the runway, even though the aircraft was tracking down the center line. We can confirm that these engine parts were located down here beyond taxiway Alpha 2 and Bravo 2 towards the end of runway 17 right, near the 2,000-foot remaining sign. Runway 17 right, nearly 12,000 feet long. By the way, this runway remains closed. The other 2 runways here at Louisville are open at this time. And we can confirm that by looking at a Google Earth view. Here's Alpha 2, Bravo 2, the end of 17 right. There's the Vasylite structure system here, a 2,000-foot remaining marker, and the tower in the background. If we zoom in on the debris, we can see an engine nacelle, the leading edge of the engine nacelle right here, the 2,000-foot remaining marker, and here is the engine pylon located right here. This connects the engine to the airframe. Here's another view. There's the 2,000-foot marker. These are the VASI lights, or PAPI lights, correction. Here is the part of the pylon structure, that leading edge of the engine nacelle, the ring cowling, the front of the cowling of the engine, and here's a inner part of the engine cowling. And going back to the wider frame, here's the 2,000-foot marker, the PAPI lights, the pylon, the leading edge of the cowling, impact marks for the core of the engine, and the core of the engine ended up down here. So we've got cowling parts first, followed by the engine over here. Here's that first view we had of the engine where the tower is located back here, which kind of locates the location of the engine. Windsock right there. And a little clearer picture of the engine right after the crash. Now, yesterday, I need some better glasses, but at first I thought this looked like grass or dirt in the inlet side of the engine, but it's not. And there was one commenter out of the thousands of comments we got yesterday that correctly identified this as part of the acoustic lining, the carbon fiber acoustic lining that goes between the engine and the cowling, or the fan section and the cowling, or part of the carbon fiber material that lines the inside of the cowling near the fan blades. And the point of all this exercise is we're trying to figure out what happened first. Was this an engine failure followed by a pylon failure, or was it a pylon failure that caused everything to come to pieces? And investigators will have the answer to this very soon, but looking at this acoustic liner all balled up around the intake of this engine and the condition of this engine leads me to believe, in my opinion, that this very well could have been an engine failure first, which then caused the pylon to fail due to excessive vibrations. Very late in the takeoff roll, well after V1 rotate, putting the crew in an impossible position from which to recover. And as we discussed yesterday, the huge engine fire sending FOD and debris into the number 2 engine, the middle engine at the tail of the aircraft, causing that engine to compressor stall and lose power. There was simply not enough reserve power for this aircraft to remain airborne. And at this time, we don't know if any of this impacted the number 3 engine. The number 3 engine may have been suffering FOD and damage as well from the liberation of the number 1 engine. And this reminds us why we need to be careful comparing older accidents that may look similar to this current accident. Remember, on American Airlines Flight 191, it was in fact the left pylon that failed, and subsequently, because of the design of the DC-10 at the time, the left slats, outboard slats on the left leading edge of the wing did retract, and that caused the airplane to roll up to 90 degrees like we see here in the picture. And it took a long time, but finally accident investigators found that it was a maintenance procedure that compromised the bolts and the attach points of the pylon that caused the pylon to fail. Basically, the maintenance crews were trying to save upwards of 200 man-hours of labor by, instead of, when they went to go do a typical engine change on these aircraft, instead of pulling the engine off of the pylon and then working on the pylon separately, they found it to be quicker to simply use a forklift and disconnect the entire engine and pylon assembly together from right at the pylon wing attach points, and that's where they damaged the pylon and subsequently caused that failure. So that probably has little or nothing to do with the current accident we're looking at here in Louisville. So as was announced in yesterday's NTSB briefing, the NTSB has recovered the data recorder and the voice recorder, and today they released a photograph of these two recorders, the actual recorders from the accident aircraft, and they are confident that they will get good data off of these recorders, so we should have answers to these questions hopefully soon. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.